All right, guys, in today's video, we're working on the interior of this 1998 Chevrolet Cheyenne. This is a GMT 400 old body style type truck, and if we pan the camera up a little bit, you can see what we're going to be working on is the upper dash area. It's very typical for these cracks to develop after this many years. This one is particularly bad, where now we can have problems with debris and even liquids falling down into the radio unit, which is still working. We don't want to have that happen, but if we look back here, we can see this crack runs all the way down, extends into this mounting bolt all the way to the end by the windshield. And then same thing with this mounting bolt here, and then this crack is running all the way up here. This is actually not too bad. I have seen them way worse than this perusing the salvage yard. But what we're going to do is we're going to cover this up because this particular model dash isn't reproduced. 94 and back, you can actually get a whole reproduction dash unit, but 95 and up are not yet reproduced. So the best we can do is do a overlay on this, and I'll show you what that product is. But first we got to prep this. Preparation is everything for this type of work to have success, and we got to clean all of the dust. And if you have any type of Armor All or any other type of chemical on here, we've got to get that off so that the adhesive with the cover is going to take. So let me show you the prep step, and then I'll show you the product. All right, guys, I've had good success over many years in putting these types of overlays on with just two cleaning products. Some type of vinegar-based glass cleaner. You can also use the spray type glass cleaners, but you got to get something that doesn't have any shine enhancers, any fragrances, anything like that. And then when you do find anything sticky or noticeably slippery, like Armor All stains, this 50-50, it's 50% isopropyl alcohol and 50% water. This will usually take that stuff off. So we're just going to go over the whole top dash with a microfiber towel using these two chemicals in preparation for putting the cover on. So one other tip when you're working around the actual cracks, you don't want to spray the cleaner on top because it's just going to drip down onto the electronics. You want to put it on the rag itself when you're cleaning on these areas. When you're not around a crack, you can spray like you normally would, but for when you're around here, we don't want to do that. All right, we've gone over it twice, and you can see the difference, right? This is how white this rag was before we started. The reason I like these microfiber type towels is when the surface of this is not clean, this will tend to stick to it, and so you'll be able to tell if you've gotten everything off. All right, at this point, we've got it cleaned. The next thing is we're going to pull these 3 7mm bolts that are holding on or used to hold on this front area here. Now with it open the way it is, I'm only going to show you one here. With it how it's open like this, we're going to need to have a magnet handy too, because we don't want to have this drop down. So we're going to keep a magnet handy as we get this out of here. And you guys, I'm not going to necessarily have you watch this whole thing. It's kind of cramped. You don't have a lot of swing. We're using 1/4-inch ratchet and 1/4-inch socket and extension to get this guy out. While you do this, you're going to hear all kinds of little pieces of plastic dropping down because it's all shattered and broken. Like 2 or 3 little threads still hanging on here, I guess. There we go. They're kind of long, just like that. We're going to take off the other 2, then we'll come back. All right, we're getting the last one here. And as we get this, I can even show you this crack actually moved a little bit further down. So watch out for that, depending on the fragility of what you got. And then after you're done, you're going to have to do this over again because you've gotten your skin oils and possibly skin sweat back on here, and that's going to interfere with the adhesive that we're going to use in the next step. So let's go ahead and take a look at the product that we're going to use to cosmetically mitigate and repair this damage. All right, guys, so this is the product that we're going to be using. It's from a company called Dashskin. I've used them on other types of GM vehicles to make similar repairs on cracked dashes, and I'm very happy with the long-term performance and how they hold up. This one here, of course, is for this GMT 400 type. I'm just going to pull it out of the box and lay it out for you to see. So basically what you're going to get is it's a cover. Think of it like an overlay. And in fact, when we did our cleaning, I guess I should point out to you, you got to come down the sides of the dash as well, right? Because this is the side where it covers the switch that would go through here for the door. So all of this also has to be cleaned when you do the prep step. So we're going to get this unpacked and we're going to coincide and do a test fit. All right, guys, just to give you another view of this product, this one's in medium gray. This is going to be the driver's side where the fuse box cover is, door light switch, defroster vent. Come over here, defroster vents, and then up here, this is where the airbag, if you have a half-ton truck, or the cubby, if you have a 3/4 or 1 ton. And then over here, defroster vent, and then finally the passenger side door light switch. So again, you know, you want to have all this area cleaned. If we come over on the front top over here, all this area has got to be clean for it to stick. All this area down here has got to be all cleaned off, as well as what you had on top. The only modification that we're going to do to this product out of the box is right down here. So we're going to drill holes to accommodate those screws that we took out so that we can improve the structural stability of what's left of the dash. We're just going to drill a hole here, here, and here to accommodate those 7mm screws. Other than that, we're going to just use it exactly the way we received it. All right, guys, we did a test fit on here. You know, as you test fit it, one of the things you'll have to do, it's off the camera here, but you're going to have to pull the fuse cover off, get this situated on this side, and then just kind of work it down behind the front bezel here. You might have to get a trim tool and pull this partially off. But we're going to want to position this behind all these trim pieces. We're going to want to get it in between this trim piece here just to make sure everything's fitting well. Now the reason I'm doing this is just to make sure everything's fitting well, but also I want to get these indentations here fully seated so I know about where I'm going to drill these holes. And I believe where I want to put them is right there. So that's where we're going to put the holes on all of these to help hold this down. And then we're going to pop this off. We'll drill it. We'll do one more wipe down, and then we'll start the adhesive. And guys, just a view on the side for the fitment here, right? So again, as you come up the top here, you got to work it into the seam of any of the existing trim pieces. Work it into the seam here. Now we'll work it in more aggressively after we get the adhesive in place. But when you're doing a test fit like this, it's always good to see if you're going to run into any problems. Like right here, it's just, you know, not cooperating with that particular seam. It means after we get the glue in place, we're going to probably want to put some painter's tape to help hold this guy down. We might even get something that we can prop against the seat to push up against this until it dries. All right, now we can go to the glue step. So there's the instructions that have come in the box. And then there will also be a tube of this adhesive, which is just silicone adhesive. And what they're telling you in here, they're telling you, we'll make sure you get all that. And then they're pointing out some things I already pointed out about tucking the lip behind the front bezel for the instrument cluster. You see those 4 red arrows. And then pushing this back down to help hold it in position while it dries. Immediately pop the bezel back into its secured position. This will ensure the skin cures in exactly the right place. Skipping this step can result in the skin curing off the dash, so it's very important. Fuse panel cover comes off. You get it installed, then you put it back on. Again, it helps hold it in place. 97 to 2000 You've got this cubby area, or also it could be an airbag on the half tons. And like I was showing you, all these 4 arrows here and these arrows here, you got to get this to squeeze in into the seam between those trim pieces, right? The lip of the dash skin will fit into all of the cracks and seams of the original dash. These areas should push right into place without too much effort. It's going to vary depending on your age of your vehicle, of course. Dry fitting the dash skin we just did. You can decide what you're going to use to weigh it down. I'll show you what I'm going to use to weigh it down. They talk about the cleaning. They tell you don't use any of these cleaners, particularly alcohol, on the dash skin itself, right? So we're just talking about when we clean, we're talking about the original dash. If you've got a really bad damage, they go through, if you have like huge sections missing, they go through some techniques to build this surface up so that there's something for this piece to sit against. Now, we don't have that problem, but they recommend putting polyfill into those holes to build that up, and then you put the glue all the way around it. They talk about gluing the cracks as you put this down so you don't get any rattles. So as we go do this, wherever we had an original crack, we're going to put adhesive on it again just to avoid any rattles. And then they tell you specifically on the actual skin where you're going to apply this in red, right? So these dots all along the top edge, all through here, all through here, all through the side, and then the lines all around the openings and around these edges that are going to be under more pressure, around the defroster vents so that you can get an airtight seal, all around here. Just like in the picture, using a thin continuous bead about the size of a dime for where they show the red dot, about the width of a pencil where they show the line. Only use the adhesive that came with the product because it could react with the plastic that it's constructed of. Then they go into their recommendation for how you secure this and weigh it down. You see they're using some towels around the dashboard. I have done that technique before. They're stacking out what looks like here's some printer paper. We're going to be using something else that's more flexible. I'll show you what I ended up doing. They're reminding you again about getting this tucked in behind the dash bezel to keep it having an OEM look, right? And then they talk about using some prop rods against the seat or the headrest, and I was mentioning that you'd have to do something like that to push up against some of these pieces, along with some foam, some painter's tape. You can push a rag in here as you close the door to help hold that side down. Give it 12 hours, and then it should be done. So just go ahead and show gluing this down. I'll show you the glue applied in the areas that they indicate in this picture here. All right, guys, we're getting ready to apply this. Another product I'll show you from Dashskin is in the color of whatever you get, whether it be tan or medium gray. In this case, you can get some color-matched paint for the plastic. If you have any areas inside the dash that you need to color match because they're damaged, or if you find that you have any minor cosmetic damage to the dash skin itself, it's good to have a can of this on hand. All right, let's go ahead and get started with getting it installed. We're going to pop the hole in this guy here. I'm just going to show you a couple of these at different spots. I don't know why I put that back on. All right, so we're going to work down this front area of dots first, and then we'll come back and do the lines. So we're going to have a dime-sized piece here and a dime-sized piece here, right? So we're just going to keep going all the way down, just like in the manual, using that technique. Right? So we'll come back when we're ready to do the lines. All right, guys, we're all ready to put it in. If you kind of zoom in, we did it a little bit more than was specified in the instructions because we wanted to use up all the material we were given. And just from past experience, we know some spots that might not stick as well, so you can take note of what we've done here. But we've got the collection of dots and streams in all the right places, and now we're going to put it into the truck. Give one more wipe down real quick, and then we'll press it in. All right, guys, so we've got this all centered up. We've got this centered up. We've already pushed the bezel back in. We've got it pushed in here. We're going to put our fuse thing back in to hold that. And then with my other hand here, I'm just going to kind of keep pressure on it. We're just going to slide a towel in here, right on top of our switch. And then another one here. And then we're just going to close the door and put some pressure on this side. You just want to hold those towels in there, and of course you got to scoot yourself out without the towels falling. All right, so now this side's done. Now let's go work on the middle from the passenger side. All right, we've already put the screws back in to give us some support down there. And then we're going to work these bags of flour. Bags of rice or sugar will work too, because they're soft and they'll take a shape as we wedge them in here. And as we do that, we're going to continue working this in behind the bezel. Keep working our way to the passenger side. We'll get about halfway, we'll come back. All right, we're just wedging a towel in between the windshield and the outer end of the dash skin so that we can get some pressure on those dots on the very edge so that it adheres nice and tight. The key thing here is wedge. You want to get a lot of wedging in here so that it is pushing down against that. Okay, as soon as you feel like you got it under good pressure here, and we can push these flour bags or rice bags or bags of beans, whatever you got that will take some shape between these pieces as it gets pressed in here. Also has to have some weight to it. And we got one more towel here to complete this. And then we can turn our attention to the front bezel pieces before anything sets up on the silicone. All right, so we're just going to do this corner here, and then we'll switch over to the other side, and we'll come back around from the front. All right, so you're going to have some areas like this one. They're kind of stubborn, so it'll fit into the recessed space between here, but it won't stay. And so what we're going to have to do in a situation like this is you're going to have to find yourself a adequately sized piece of scrap wood, piece of plastic, something. In my case, I'm going to take this piece of scrap wood, wedge it up against the seat, get this guy where he's supposed to be, and then we'll hold him in for the glue to dry like that. So we're just going to continue working over. We got another one right here where it's going to fit, but it's not going to stay. So we're going to have to get some pressure on that, and we're going to have to get some pressure along this bottom strip. The rest of it kind of fell into place. We're going to need some pressure along this top piece too, just until it takes. So we're going to need something pushing up here and something pushing maybe in the middle and on these two sides. And that's really the only thing we're going to need. We'll put another towel here on this side, and that'll be it. We've got all of our flour bags up on the top, plus that, plus our bolts. So once we get this situated down here by the glove box area, it'll be ready to cure for the 12 hours. All right, guys, so we braced up along here. We braced up along here, and then you saw earlier we braced up along there. Everything else worked out okay without needing to be braced. Just like we did on the driver's side, we wedged some towels in here. And so at this point, we're ready to wait out the 12 hours, put it somewhere like you see here where it's going to be either shady or at least partly shady like this. You don't want any direct sunlight. In fact, I might move it just back a little bit more because we're getting a little bit of direct sun over here. But you want to keep it in the shade all the way through. This is a good thing to do late in the afternoon and let it sit overnight. So we'll come back and see how it is after it dries. All right, guys, following day, the next thing we're going to go do here is I'm going to use some Armor All Interior Detailer. This is the matte finish, no shine, all natural. What we're going to do with this is to put this over everything to protect the paint. Again, clean microfiber towel. I'm going to go ahead and treat this whole thing, and then I'll show you how the final fitment came out. Now, we did have, in reviewing the footage, we did have one section of video that didn't work, so let me stop and show you what you missed. So when you first fit this in here, you'll want to take a small mirror and make sure that you've got no obstruction on the defroster vents. So, maybe you accidentally placed this down too soon and you might have got a glob of RTV type sealant in here clogging it up. You just want to go over and make sure these are all clear. They're going to be, they look like they're off depending on the angle you have on the mirror, but they actually line up just fine. The second thing I'll point out to you is on these 7mm screws, we drilled these out as 1/4 so that we actually threaded these screws into the dash skin. You may or may not be able to engage the original speed nuts depending on how deteriorated this is up here. And that by doing the smaller size hole, you have the screws holding in so that cosmetically it looks stock even if you can't get engagement with the speed nuts. So I want to point that out too. Don't worry if you can't get that. It's no big deal if you drill the hole small enough. All right, so let me go ahead and finish cleaning this up, and then I'll give you a tour of the final work, and I'll show you some of the things to take note of. All right, one of the things that didn't get filmed in the previous clips before we laid this down was how to deal with the cracks that were here. Right around here was where we had the big gap crack. Where there's a hairline crack, just take the sealant and run it very thinly along the hairline crack, and then with a gloved finger, we spread it. We don't want to put pressure on this because that whole piece could break off and fall in and you end up with a huge hole. Then where you have the large hole, take the tube and go around it on both sides, around the crack. Gloved finger, spread it around, and that's all you need to do. I didn't get that filmed before we put this down. I wanted you to see how you'd handle that. Every one of those hairline cracks, the one over here, this one, the one over there, just take a gloved finger and spread it around. That'll avoid any possibility of rattles as that continues to deteriorate underneath the dash skin. All right, guys, let me give you the grand tour of the finished product here. We'll start on the driver's side. We've got very good fitment around the defroster vent. You may find it slightly off-center depending on how the fitment is with your particular dash and how much damage you have. As long as this is clear to blow air, that's all that really matters. Fitment around the cover for the fuse box was great. You see the fitment around the lower kick panel up through this upper dash instrument cluster bezel is really good. If we start panning along the top here, depending on how old your bezel is, you might not have the little spring retainers all over the place to keep it nice and closed gap-wise. But, it is what it is. That'll be the next thing to replace someday on this truck. But very good fitment, very even fitment all the way around the top. I already showed you what it looks like around the defroster vents. Let's go around the middle, and then I'll take you over to the passenger side. All right, guys, just continuing our tour here of the final product. Again, nice, even spacing and position around the bezel. Obviously still looks good. I think putting those screws in there gives you a real stock appearance. Coming down this side here, this piece that we had trouble with, it took on nicely. In the end, this is one of the things I guess I would complain about. It is slightly higher than this trim piece here, but not enough to really be noticeable. It doesn't interfere with any operation of anything in either place, and it's glued in very nicely. This piece here came out excellent. This piece here came out nice. There's a little bit of a waviness to the gap because it's such thin ABS plastic, but there's no problem with the operation of the glove box. One thing I'll say up here, if you've got a 99 SUV, like a Suburban, a Tahoe, or an Escalade, or a Yukon, there was a federal recall, crash dummies and testing. The headpiece was getting caught here on the chin, and they had a recall piece put in there. I'll show you a section of what this looks like. You may have to remove that to get this dash scan put in, and then you may have to reinstall it. You're going to have an airbag here on the vehicles that were affected by that, so you want to get it installed exactly the way you find it. But if you don't, like this one, the 98, it looks great. You can see all the fitment all through here. I'll bring you in on the passenger side. The range of model years on this is going to be from 97 to 2002. 94 and 95, 95 and 96 had like a cup holder deal up here. 97 started this. The pickups on the half tons ended in 98. 99 would have been just the 2500 and the 3500, and then the SUVs like the Suburban, the Tahoe, the Cadillac Escalade, the GMC Yukon. In 2000, you would have still had the Chevy Tahoe Limited and the Tahoe Z71 that were still old body style GMT 400 types like this, and then the 2500s and the 3500s. And then in 2001 and 2, you would have only had this style on the 3500 HD Classics. So that's the range and the video title that this covers. Let me give you the last shot on the passenger side here. All right, this is the recall insert that the dealer would have put in if you brought your 99 SUV in for that recall. It's got a screw here and here that attach to a bracket that's underneath it, and then those brackets has several fasteners that go in below the dash. Right? Again, you got an airbag right under here, and so the placement of those fasteners is key. You can't just go drill willy-nilly, so you'll probably have to remove this to get the dash skin to fit and then reinstall it on top of it. All right, just continuing down this side, just another view here. And again, like I said earlier, this is probably the weakest part of the whole design, is how thin the ABS is here. Would have liked it if we could have got this to go in a little bit more, but we couldn't get it to wedge in any further on this particular seam. And you don't want to push too hard because this ABS this plastic is very brittle. It could crack, so we don't want to do that. Fit very nicely around the seam here. Nice and even. Of course, on this side, came in nice. The only other thing I wasn't happy about is you can see there's a little gap by the defroster gap back here. Could not get it to settle in this back area for whatever reason. It's just cosmetic. It's not functional. I tried a couple of times, but I was afraid to push too much on this because I thought it might crack. But guys, other than those minor comments, and you can see here, even with the aged plastic of the glove box and these AC vents, and then the outline of the cubby, perfect color match. Excellent job on the color match. I wish some of these other manufacturers of reproduction parts would do as good a job as Dashskin does on getting the coloring right. Yeah, you're going to have a slight change because of fading, but it's not noticeable like it is in some of these other parts. These are very, very, very accurate. And then that paint that I showed you earlier, we could take this glove box door off later on, clean this up, and we can account for some of that wear because of how accurate this color match is, and we can get this looking brand new as well as part of restoring this whole interior. So I definitely recommend this. It adds value to the vehicle, and it definitely freshens it up and makes it look very presentable again. If you've got comments or questions about what we did here today, leave it below, and I'll try to help out or clarify things. If you found this useful, taught you how to get this repair done, saved you some money and how to get it accomplished, I'd appreciate you paying it forward by hitting that like button. And as always, thanks for watching.